Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Jacobs, and I want to thank you all for coming out here tonight. It's a beautiful night. Caitlin's probably saying, yeah, I kept texting her, is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? And of course, it's beautiful outside. I just want to thank you all for coming out. Thank all the other candidates who are running for school committee. It is a very difficult task to go out day after day, knock all those doors, and I really respect all the other candidates for taking time away from their family. Hi, sweetie. For taking their time away from their family to do this. It is very important. But I grew up here in Quincy, in Howes Neck. I attended Quincy Public Schools. I went to the Athens Howe School, went for elementary school. But when I was young, I was identified as having a learning disability. And I attended the Head Start program at Snug Harbor. And after 2 years of pre-kindergarten there, it was decided that I would be best to be educated in a sub-separate educational setting. So I spent a year in a separate first grade classroom where I was educated, and along, with the help of my family and, early teachers, I was mainstream when I was in first grade again. I have a twin brother who's around here somewhere, and he was in second grade, so everyone would always say, why are you guys in different grades? But, I continued my education at Athens Howe, went there, second, third, fourth, in fifth grade. I received special education services there. Right up until I went into high school. I actually attended Quincy High for 2 years. And I attended North Quincy High for 2 years, so I'm that lucky can that gets to say I went to both high schools. But when I was in middle school, I really had great teachers, general ed teachers and special education teachers, and I decided then that I wanted to become a teacher myself. But I didn't know exactly what I would ever teach. But when I was in middle school, I really started to like social studies. And when I was in 8th grade, I actually started to volunteer at the Adams National Historical Park. Some of you have probably been there, the Adams Mansion. And while I was there, we started a really popular program called the Spirits of Quincy. We used to do it on Halloween. If anyone ever been to the Hancock Cemetery. They don't do it anymore, but we did that for a long time. But in 2005, I graduated from North Quincy High School. I went to Salem State University, and because I had been volunteering for the National Park Service for so many years, I was able to actually get a job working for the National Park Service, which is great because all my friends were working at McDonald's and all that fun stuff, and I was working, for the government, so I thought it was pretty cool. I worked at the Sauter Ironworks and the Salem Maritime National Historic Sites for about 4 years. I did tours and education programs there. When I graduated from college, it was 2009. And the market really wasn't great. A lot of people couldn't find jobs. But luckily I had already been working for the Park Service for a long time, and I was able to get a job out in South Dakota. And I worked at the Badlands National Park and Mount Rushmore National Memorial for 6 months. From there I went to Nebraska, lived in Nebraska for a couple of months. And then I actually went to Florida, to the Dry Tortugas National Park, Fort Jefferson, which is west of Key West, if there is such a thing. It's a 5-hour boat ride to get there. But after doing that, I decided I was going to try and go back and pursue a higher education degree. So I went to Salem State, and I got my graduate degree in middle school humanities, and graduated there in 2013. And while I was there, I had the ability to continue working for the National Park Service at the Adams National Historical Park. And while I was there, I was the education coordinator. So I coordinated all the education programs for the elementary school kids, not just here in Quincy, but all over the state. We had a school that came every year from California to participate in that pen and parchment program that they had there. And some of you may have gone to it on the 4th of July. They do it at the Adams Houses. So that's a really well-run program that's known all across the United States. But when I graduated in 2013, I started to work in the Boston Public Schools. My first job there, I was a substitute teacher at the Lee School, and I worked in a special education sub-separate autism strand. The following year, I was a paraprofessional in that strand. And then the following year after that, I taught. I was a classroom teacher, and I taught 7th and 8th grade special education. I taught science. Following that, I actually spent a year teaching high school science in Boston, and for the last 2 years, I've been working at the Roosevelt School in Hyde Park. When I was going to school in Quincy, when I was in high school, there were a lot of budget cuts. And a lot of people would go to the school committee meetings and get up and talk about why their programs were important. My parents were both up there, as well as many of my friends' parents. And the program that I was most interested in when I was in high school was I was an instrumental. You know, I played in the band. And when I was in high school, there were 5 instrumental teachers in Quincy. And by the time I graduated from high school, there were 2. And it was all because of the budget cuts. So when I came back here in when I graduated rather from Salem State in 2013, had a little bit more time on my hands, there was a group of parents in the Quincy Public Schools who were trying to start a nonprofit. It became known as the Quincy Band Boosters. It's a registered 501c3 charity, and I've been involved with the Quincy Band Boosters since 2013. And what we basically do is we hold fundraisers, and we raise money to give back to the instrumental program. We raise about $10,000 to $15,000 a year, and with that money, we have paid for private lessons for students who've been, who need additional help in their instrument. We have purchased jackets, music. We pay for field trips, buses, and things like that. So, I've been involved here in Quincy as well. How many of you are familiar with the new Sterling Middle School that's going up? Well, that was about, Courtney's here, about 6 years ago. We had our first community meeting about it, and I think that's when I actually first met Courtney, or it was at the gym. But so we had our first community meeting, and there were a lot of parents. I live in West Quincy now, and parents in Quincy Point who were upset with the grade configuration that was at Point Webster and Sterling. Those schools go 5 to 8. And when the new Sterling was being constructed, they wanted to make it a grade configuration 4 to 8. And at the community meetings, they sold it to us that it was going to be great. We keep the 4th and 5th grade separate. They'd never see the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And most of the questions were about, well, if it's so great, why are we spending so much time separating the kids, from their peers? They'll have separate entrances, separate start times. So what we ended up doing was starting a petition. And we went around. I went around door to door. I know Courtney went around door to door. It was online. And we got signatures to prevent or to help stop the construction of the 4 to 8 middle school. And that is what happened. The Massachusetts School Building Authority said that they were not interested in building a 4 to 8 because there was no community support for a 4 to 8 building. That's why it's going to be a 5 to 8. So that's just a little bit about myself, the things I've been involved in here in Quincy. I think I have all the right skills. I have the experience being in the classroom. I have the experience being involved in the community to be one of the next members of the Quincy School Committee. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions you have. Are you gonna ask the questions?
If you have some, there.
If anyone has questions, yeah, I can take questions from the audience.
All right.
Well, there is one?
What's your biggest concern or target project if you were to join the school committee to improve with the public schools?
Well, one of the things I'd really like to see is, again, I was really and still am really passionate about the school configuration here in Quincy. Because I live in West Quincy, so if I do not have children of my own, but if I did, they would attend Lincoln, Hancock, Sterling, and then Quincy High School. And I wouldn't want my kid, going to a 4th grade, at a middle school. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the petition effort with Courtney to start that. But I would like to see the grade configurations kind of solidified. We are building a new Sterling Middle School. It is going to be 5 to 8. The parents over there would like to see the 5th grade put back in Lincoln, Hancock. The city is in the midst of purchasing another building here in Quincy, the old St. Mary's School, to either be an elementary school or an early learning center. I've heard both, right? But I would like to see some forethought with the purchase of that building to try and make an effort to move the 5th grade back into the elementary school at Lincoln, Hancock. That would be what, I mean, along with all my other committee members, that would be one thing I would definitely be pushing.
Thank you. About time.
Thanks, Dave. All right, we're just going to move right along.